And welcome to the Citizen Report Special Bulletin. I'm Jonathan Shannon, reporting today from Lake Wylie, South Carolina. It is Tuesday, March 31st, 2020, and on this special bulletin, I'm going to be covering COVID-19 as well as, and specifically, also Project Veritas, what they just put out today, as a matter of fact. It's big-time news. And also, I'm going to be talking a little bit about the Federal Reserve and also QAnon and also some headlines. And you're going to have to kind of pardon my way of presentation style today because I'm kind of doing this I've got printouts in front of me, so if you hear some background noise, I hope there's not too much of that, but hopefully you'll understand in case there is some background noise. But let's get to the big breaking news that just released today, and that is from Project Veritas. And namely James O'Keefe. He is a phenomenal journalist. He's certainly not a mainstream journalist, to say the least. He certainly does his own thing. And sometimes, folks, when journalists do their own thing, they put out some of the best content because he really tries hard to pursue truth, to shine light into darkness. And I commend him for it because, frankly, we need more journalists like that. But the breaking news is that basically, as I understand it, he was in New York State, and I'm going to read directly from the article that was put out by Project Veritas, and it starts out by saying, quote, "At the Glen Island Park drive-thru COVID-19 testing entrance, New York National Guardsmen told Project Veritas founder and CEO James O'Keefe the media reaction to the virus outbreak was overblown, and to him, it was just a flu." Now I'm going to skip down here, and this is the exchange roughly translated in this article. This is how the conversation went, and of course there's more to it, but I'm just going to read the first bit of it. James O'Keefe asks, quote, "What about the situation itself? Is it as bad as the media is saying, the whole pandemic, ? And New York Army National Guardsman says, quote, "Oh no, it's the flu." O'Keefe then asks, "That's all it is?" Guardsman, "It's the flu." So if you want to go, I strongly suggest, folks, that you go check this out because this is some mind-blowing material right here, and there's more to it. Oh, trust me, there is. But obviously, we don't have a whole lot of time because I'm trying to keep this at least semi-short, so it's easy to digest. But just understand that the media is overblowing it. And I've been saying this for weeks, folks. And now I feel vindicated. I feel like everything I have been saying with regards to the media overblowing this whole thing, I do believe I was correct. The media is overblowing this. And folks, I'm not saying that COVID-19 isn't a threat to some people. It certainly can be, and certainly is. But we have seen reports that they're either misdiagnosing it as COVID-19 post-mortemly, like people die and then they say, oh, he died from coronavirus, when no such thing happened. Or it can't be proven that it really was COVID-19 that said person died from. So that being said, I just want you to understand that, yes, take this seriously. Yes, wash your hands, but don't panic. Understand that the media has an agenda here. It is in their vested interest to make Trump look as bad as possible. And in my personal opinion, this is just my opinion, but I think that President Trump is handling this phenomenally because he's providing guidance. Yes, he's providing a stable, calm voice, if you will, basically a stable, calm leader, for the whole country. But he's ultimately leaving it up to the states to implement, actual restrictions. And of course, in my opinion, these governors that say you have to stay at home, they put in these orders, it's pure tyranny because it's a slippery slope. Because once you start usurping people's rights, and this is one of the points I wanted to make with this special bulletin, once you start down that road, there is no standard to say we stop here and not go any further, because the Constitution, and this is what I want to get at too, is that it very clearly states that, we have a right to be secure in ourselves. We have a right to be secure in our person, our effects, our houses, however it's articulated. You can go look at the Constitution if you wish to read exactly what it says. But everything that all these restrictions are going into effect with these states are absolute tyranny. However, that being said, I do think there's more than one thing going on right now. I do think you've got the Democrats and even Republicans, who I would call rhinos. You've got those that are pushing their agenda for all the wrong reasons. And I say Republicans that I call rhinos. I don't mean all Republicans. I just mean those that are pushing restrictions. In my opinion, they're not true Republicans because they're not upholding the Constitution. But my point being is that there's also another thing going on, and I do believe there's operations underway by the Patriots to take out the bad guys, or at least a number of them. Do I think they're all going to be taken out right now? No. But I do think it's plausible, and I can't prove this, but I do think it's plausible. There's a number of things happening as we speak, and they're using this COVID-19 situation to take care of some of these people, shall we say. And what better way to keep these deep staters from pushing what we would say false flags, events? What better way to keep the people safe than to have people stay at home? I'm not saying that the Patriots are necessarily pushing tyranny or, causing these governors to have people stay at home, but I am saying with a fair degree of confidence that they are exploiting this to their advantage. So that being said, I would encourage you once more to go to projectveritas.com and check this out, because this is again just mind-blowing journalism. It might be the best piece of journalism that I've seen in quite a while, and certainly so far this year. It is phenomenal. And hat tip to James O'Keefe and Project Veritas for getting this out there. But I do want to switch gears again, because of all people, Judge Andrew Napolitano, who as of recently has said some things that really have made me stop liking him entirely, namely on Fox News, where he was basically kind of almost being for, well, I wouldn't say with certainty that he was for impeachment, but he was certainly not being entirely in favor of Trump. So I do not like I do not like Judge Napolitano. However, I do think he was right on this. And this is from WashingtonTimes.com. And the headline reads, and this is an analysis/opinion from Napolitano. And he poses a question as the headline. What good are constitutional rights if they are violated when Americans get sick? And amen. Because that's exactly it. Because once you start down the path of temporarily taking away people's rights, you run the risk of either not getting those rights back, or you create a situation where you say certain rights can be usurped, and yet there's no really set standard to say which rights can stay and which ones go. And meanwhile, the Constitution says, no, you have these rights. And by the way, the government didn't give you these rights. God gave you these rights. And in fact, the only reason government exists is to, one, protect our rights, and two, to basically provide for general welfare, to provide for defense, among other things. It's basically to, yes, provide the leadership for this society, but at the same time, the Founding Fathers did not ever stand in favor of things like this, where people just take away your rights because they say so. I mean, I have never seen anything like this. I've never seen anything like this. It's just astonishing to me, to see people give these orders of people staying home, and that you can go to jail, you can get cited just because you stand too close to somebody, or you're not, outside because you're outside of your house. I mean, how ridiculous. How ridiculous. And I hope that everybody within reach of my voice will understand that we must, even if it's inconvenient, even when it's, where it would be simpler to just say, yeah, let's order everyone to stay in their houses. These are the very times that our rights matter the most. And again, just because our government is supposed to provide for general welfare, it does not mean that they take away our rights and order everyone staying inside without due process, without giving them the rights of due process. But I digress. And one of the quotes here from Benjamin Franklin says, and this is attributed to Benjamin Franklin, and this is included in that article that I would encourage you to go read as well. This is the quote from Benjamin Franklin. "Those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety." Exactly. Even when, it is better that we as a society have liberty with our God-given rights than to purchase a little temporary safety, because ultimately, when you start taking away people's rights, even if just temporarily, it's tyranny. And it's not what our founding fathers wanted. So I hope everyone understands that even in times like this, we must continue to say, no, we have God-given rights and we must stand up for them. Because once you give the power to an individual or to a bureaucrat to decide what rights can exist when, it's a slippery slope that you'll never be able to resolve. That's why it's always better to give people liberty, even if it's dangerous to, than to provide temporary safety, because ultimately it leads to tyranny, because you're leaving the decision of whether someone can keep their rights and to what extent to a person, and they can decide to take away all your rights. And you wouldn't have the standard that you would with the Constitution to say, no, legally, I'm entitled to these rights. So let's switch gears again, because this is also very interesting. Dr. Fauci, you'll probably by now have heard of his name quite a bit. He's one of the people kind of been part of the White House daily briefings. And while on camera, yes, they're saying, oh, this can happen, that can happen. They're giving out, like Deborah Birx, I believe, gave out a figure that it could be even as much as 200,000 deaths or something, which, by the way, does not seem plausible to me at this point. He says, and I want you to, in the back of your mind, recall what I just brought up about Project Veritas. And this is what Dr. Fauci basically said, and I'm pulling it up right now in my printouts here. And this is what, according to thegatewaypundit.com, basically Dr. Fauci co-authored a report just a few days ago on the coronavirus in the New England Journal of Medicine. And this is a direct quote, and this is going to sound a little technical, but just try to follow me here as best as you can. This is his quote, "This suggests that the overall clinical consequences of COVID-19 may ultimately be more akin to those of a severe seasonal influenza, which has a case fatality rate of approximately 0.1%, or a pandemic influenza similar to those in 1957 and 1968, rather than a disease similar to SARS or MERS, which have had case fatality rates of 9 to 10% and 36% respectively," unquote. So trying to put this in more plain spoken English, because that's pretty technical, he's basically saying that this is going to be more akin to the flu, a seasonal flu, he's saying, or it's at least he's saying that the data he's looking at suggests that. Now, is he going to tell people that on camera? At this point, I don't see that happening, at least not right away. But my point, folks, is that yes, the media is overblowing this big time, and we need to remember that they failed on impeachment, so they're trying to push their narrative with this. Do I think it's going to work? No, I do not think so, because I'll just tell you this. Personally, I have had people ask me questions that I never thought I would get asked, at least by, I've got people ask me, about whether there's been a real video. I've got somebody that had just recently asked me, is there an actual video of somebody out there who's claiming to have had COVID-19 that's not, being put out there by the media, that's independently coming, forth with his or her own testimony of having COVID-19? And that's a good question. And we need to get to the bottom of that. But I do want to switch gears again because I think this is very interesting. Because this is right here. This is QAnon from March 28th. So just 3 days ago or so. And this is from, according to qmap.pub, the website titles it, "When you are awake, you are able to clearly see." And I want you to keep in mind, folks, about the media's agenda with pushing this as I read this. This is going to be a little lengthy, so do just bear with me as best as you can, and I appreciate it. So let's get started. And it starts out by saying, decide for yourself. Be free from outside opinion. Decide for yourself. Be objective in your conclusions. Decide for yourself. Be true in your own beliefs. Decide for yourself. Be open to following the facts. Decide for yourself. Be strong in defending your beliefs. Decide for yourself. Be resistant to blindly accepting factless statements. Those who attack you, those who mock you, those who call you, those who control you, those who label you, do they represent you? Or do they represent themselves in some form? Mental enslavement. The Great Awakening, freedom of thought, was designed and created not only as a back channel to the public away from the long-standing mind control of the corrupt and heavily biased media, to endure future events through transparency and regeneration of individual thought, breaking the chains of groupthink, but more importantly, aid in the construction of a vehicle, a ship, that provides the scattered freethinkers with a starter new social networking platform which allows for freedom of thought, expression, and patriotism, or national pride, the feeling of love, devotion, and sense of attachment to a homeland and alliance with other citizens who share the same sentiment. When non-dogmatic information becomes free and transparent, it becomes a threat to those who attempt to control the narrative and or the stable. When you are awake, you stand on the outside of the stable, groupthink collective, and have free thought. Free thought is a philosophical viewpoint which holds that positions regarding truth should be formed on the basis of logic, reason, and empiricism. I hope I pronounced that right. Let me continue. Rather than authority, tradition, revelation, or dogma. When you are awake, you are able to clearly see. The choice is yours and yours alone. Trust and put faith in yourself. You are not alone, and you are not in a minority. Difficult truths will soon see the light of day. Where WWG1, WGA, which means where we go one, we go all, Q. And that was post number 3906. So folks, the point being is that QAnon is meant to wake people up to what's really going on with the media. And I would just add to that, personally, that to trust God first, just trust Him, because He's the only constant in this world. That even though things change, God doesn't change. His love for you never changes. His love for you remains absolute always. So just remember that, folks, and be encouraged by the fact that God loves you, and that if you're a Christian, you are fully secure in belonging to Jesus, and just trust that His precious blood covers you and protects you from these things like COVID-19. And also as I've mentioned in previous episodes, just continue to trust Psalm 91. What's said in Psalm 91, that no evil shall befall you. No, in fact, let me just do this while I'm recording this. I just want to pull up this really quick, and I do ask you to bear with me here. I try to be prepared, but sometimes I see something and I didn't have a printout for it. So let me just do this, okay? I'm just going to pull this up really quickly here. All right, I'm going to start with verse 1 in Psalm 91. He who dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. Verse 2, I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress, my God, in Him I will trust. Verse 3, surely He shall deliver you from the snare of the fowler and from the perilous pestilence. Verse 4, He shall cover you with His feathers, and under His wings you shall take refuge. His truth shall be your shield and buckler. Verse 5, you shall not be afraid of the terror by night, nor of the arrow that flies by day. Verse 6, nor of the pestilence that walks in darkness, nor the destruction that lays waste at noonday. Verse 7, 1,000 may fall at your side, and 10,000 at your right hand, but it shall not come near you. Verse 8, only with your eyes shall you look and see the reward of the wicked. Verse 9, because you have made the Lord, who is my refuge, even the Most High, your dwelling place. Verse 10, and this is the part I was meaning to quote here. No evil shall befall you, nor shall any plague come near your dwelling. Verse 11, for He shall give His angels charge over you, to keep you in all your ways. Verse 12, in their hands they shall bear you up, lest you dash your foot against a stone. Verse 13, you shall tread upon the lion and the cobra, the young lion and the serpent you shall trample underfoot. Verse 14, because He has set His love upon me, therefore I will deliver him. I will set him on high, because he has known my name. He shall call upon me. This is verse 15. He shall call upon me, and I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I will deliver him and honor him. And finally, verse 16. With long life I will satisfy him and show him my salvation. And that's Psalms 91, folks. And just receive that by faith, the truths of Psalm 91. Speak it out over your life. And I'm telling you, folks, there is, especially recently, I have become very aware of the fact that it's important to not just believe truths of Scripture. It's also important to speak it out. So speak out loud Psalm 91 if you want. And just trust that God's going to protect you from whatever this is. And I do not think that COVID-19 is nearly as bad as the media says it is, but to whatever extent it is, and again, it may just be something akin to the flu, and it appears such. But just continue to trust God. We will get through this. And do not allow tyranny. Do not allow people to take away your rights. Just refuse it. Refuse it. Do not allow politicians to use this as an excuse to take away your rights. No matter how they package it or put a bow tie on, or to put a bow on it. Do not accept that tyranny. Do not accept that tyranny. So with that said, folks, I do want to get you a few of the headlines. I do need to wrap this up pretty shortly here. But I do want to go, and this is another printout here from johnbwellsnews.com. They come out with a fantastic PDF list here of headlines. It makes it very easy for me to look at. And I'm just going to do a few here because, I'm trying to keep this semi-short here. This first one from thegatewaypundit.com, exclusive. Attorney requests all documents related to Seth Rich from FBI after new testimony from former DOJ Assistant U.S. Attorney General discloses the FBI did examine Seth Rich's computer. From whitehouse.gov. Executive order to order the selected reserve and certain members of the individual ready reserve of the armed forces to active duty. From the epochtimes.com. Fed sees 47 million jobs lost and unemployment at 32%. From AmericanThinker.com. New York Times publishes fake news about American Thinker by Peter Barry Chalka. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. From BigLeaguePolitics.com. Poll. 15% of Sanders supporters plan to vote for Donald Trump in November. Well, that's just more bad news for Joe Biden. Great news for us, though. From ZeroHedge.com. Texas or Canada? Where will oil hit $0 first? Wow. From theamericanreport.org. Strzok's wife, Hodgman, was enforcement ad when SEC dropped insider trading case against Dia Jafar when Obama officials placed Jafar's U.S. blacklisted boss, Saddam's WMD mastermind, Dr. Dia Jafar, inside the wire at Port Canaveral, FBI knew, by Mary Fanning and Alan Jones. From InvestmentWatchdog.com. Every un-American gun bill imaginable is in House Resolution 5717. I think I'm going to go ahead and stop there, folks, because actually I still need to get to regarding the Federal Reserve, because I'm telling you, folks, the Federal Reserve is neither federal nor a reserve. But it's, according to Q, there's a restructuring that's coming. And he said that in the past, and it may very well already be in process. And if I can, I'm going to pull this up here. This is from finance.yahoo.com. And this is actually originally from Bloomberg Opinion, that publication. And I'm not going to give you the whole lowdown of this, but basically, it gives some data here, gives some information, and I'm going to start with this quote from it. Quote: To put it bluntly, the Fed isn't allowed to do any of this. The central bank is only allowed to purchase or lend against securities that have government guarantee. This includes Treasury securities, agency mortgage-backed securities, and the debt issued by Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. An argument can be made that this can also include municipal securities, but nothing in the laundry list above. So how can they do this? The Fed will finance a special purpose vehicle, or SPV, for each acronym to conduct these operations. The Treasury, using the Exchange Stabilization Fund, will make an equity investment in each SPV and be in a first loss position. What does this mean? ? In essence, the Treasury, not the Fed, is buying all these securities and backstopping of loans. The Fed is acting as banker in providing financing. Let me stop for a second, folks, and just say, are you starting to understand what's really going on here? And again, the Federal Reserve is a private globalist system, but Trump is taking it out. Now, whether it will completely cease to exist, I don't really know. It appears at this point what may actually be happening is that there's a nationalization going on of that. We'll have to see how this plays out. But let me continue. The Fed hired BlackRock Inc. to purchase these securities and handle the administration of the SPVs on behalf of the owner, the Treasury. In other words, the federal government is nationalizing large swaths of the financial markets. The Fed is providing the money to do it. BlackRock will be doing the trades. And this is the kicker, folks. And again, this is a mainstream publication saying this. This is not a patriotic alternative media, objective thing. This is actually a mainstream publication. Quote, and listen carefully. Quote, this scheme essentially merges the Fed and Treasury into one organization. So meet your new Fed chairman, Donald J. Trump. Boom. This is huge, folks. I cannot begin to tell you how huge this is. because the Federal Reserve is a globalist organization. It is not an American organization. We don't even know who truly has owned that organization. And yet they've been calling the shots, charging interest on our currency. Why in the world do we need interest for our own country's currency? It's because it's not really our own currency, is it? It's a Federal Reserve note. It's a debt note. It's a debt. A note is debt. So I think that we're heading towards a brand new economic system, maybe gold-backed. Whether or not it will be gold-backed, I don't know for sure. But it does seem plausible that we're heading towards a new system that this country, the Republic, truly controls. And it should encourage you. It really should. So on that note, I hope this has all been helpful. And again, I wanted to split this off into a special bulletin like this. And I'd like to thank you for listening, as always, and watching. And be sure to come to our website, thecitizenreport.weebly.com. You can follow me on Twitter at @TheJonathanNews. I'm also on Facebook. That's my personal account. But if you'd like to follow me or send me a friend request, feel free to go ahead and do that if you want. I'm also on Instagram at JonathanShannon96, I believe, or something very close to that. Certainly it has my picture on there, so you'll know which one it is. And also I'm on YouTube, Jonathan Ryan Shannon. That's my full name, Jonathan Ryan Shannon. So give me a subscribe there, and that's where I post these episodes at for the Citizen Report for the time being anyway. And thanks as always for tuning into the Citizen Report. I'm Jonathan Shannon. Have a great rest of your week, and enjoy life, trust God, and don't let the media put you into fear. Just trust God, trust Jesus. If you're a Christian, He's your Savior. Trust for His protection. And, we'll talk again about that, on another episode. But just, go about your life as best as you can. Be safe, be smart, but don't live in fear. Don't live in fear. Don't do what the media tells you. Think for yourself. And with that, I'm Jonathan Shannon. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. I will see you again this coming weekend, on the Citizen Report. From Lake Wylie, South Carolina, I'm Jonathan Shannon for the Citizen Report. Have a great rest of your week.
The Citizen Report is a production of New Shannon Media. All content protected under copyright.